What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Motivate, Grind, Succeed, the podcast where our goal is to improve your life in the 4 foundational cornerstones of faith, fellowship, fitness, and finance through practical tips and takeaways with every single episode, guys. If you like what you hear, do not be afraid to leave a rating and a review, as it really does help to go a long way. And also, guys, sign up for my email list where you can get access to new episode releases, merch drops, upcoming events, and so much more. And finally, if you're so inclined to want to support the show, don't forget that the Fourth Wall site is almost done at this point in time. It's almost done. And if you want to be notified about that, go ahead and sign up for that email list as well. Link will be down in the description, and more information about that at the end of this episode. So with all that being said, guys, today, we're going to be talking about trusting others. So trusting others is a very, very essential part of building strong relationships, because we need people in our lives who we can rely on, who we can confide in, who we can turn to for support, the whole shebang. But learning to trust others can be quite difficult, especially if we are one of the people who have been hurt or betrayed in the past. And so I wrote down a couple reasons why people may have problems trusting people, right? So I have 5 reasons of why some people might have problems trusting people. And then I also have 5 ways of how we can start to learn to trust others. So with that, let's go ahead and first hop into the reasons why we may have problems in trusting other people. Number 1 is that it might be due to past experiences. If someone has been betrayed or someone's been hurt by someone in the past that they trusted, it's very easy to find it very difficult to trust someone else in the future. You can think back to any sort of example in your life. It could be when you were maybe even just a young little child and maybe your friend at the time told you, "I'll give you back your eraser," and then they never did. So you always found it a lot more difficult to take that person at their word. And when they said, "Oh, just trust me, I'll be able to give you back your eraser," chances are you didn't want to trust them, because last time that happened, they didn't give you back your eraser. Simple example, I know, but it still gets the point across. Now, it could be something way worse than that, like you trusted somebody with your car and then they crashed it and it was the person who was driving its fault. Then that person you probably don't want to trust with your car or trust with your motorcycle or your boat or whatever it is that you own after that, right? Past experiences can make it very difficult for us in order to trust other people. Number 2 is fear of vulnerability. Trusting people often requires us to open ourselves up to the possibility of potentially being hurt and or rejected. For some people, this vulnerability is pretty difficult to accept, and this may lead to people avoiding wanting to trust people altogether. This is a very common one that you see a lot, is that people, as I said, they just don't want to be vulnerable. They want to make it look like they're like an impenetrable wall, and that nothing that anybody says or nothing that anybody does can really get at them. However, if we want to be able to grow in our lives, whether it be in your spiritual life or your own personal life or whatever that may be, it is very important that what we end up doing is that we actually have to be vulnerable sometimes. And you'll notice that this is also an important thing for me as well, is because a lot of times you'll hear when I'm doing this show, a lot of times you will hear me say things like full transparency here, or I'm just going to be 100% honest. That's me coming across as being more vulnerable and just letting people know, here's how it is. Here's what it is that I'm going through. Here's something that I'm struggling with, or here, you get the idea, right? So me being able to do that is, for the record, it's not easy to do that all the time. However, I find that it does help a lot with when you put things out there. It does 2 things, at least for me specifically. Number 1, it helps me to get over that fear of vulnerability, because now I can say, hey, here's what I'm going through. And I know that allows for people to connect a lot more, number 1. And then number 2, if it's something that I said that I'm working on, it also forces me now to be more accountable and saying, hey, because I said I'm not good at this XYZ thing, now I'm putting this out there on the internet for everybody in the literal world to hear, because we have worldwide listenership. Like, it puts it out there to the entire world that this is something that I'm working on. And so obviously now I have people from across the globe, quite literally now to an extent, holding me accountable for what I said that I have to do. So it helps in both ways. Like I said, it helps getting over that fear, helps people, which with the sub point of that being, it helps people to relate more. And then the second point is that it also helps to hold me accountable as well. Now, third reason why I found that some people might have some problems in trusting other folks is control issues. Some individuals may struggle with trusting others because they prefer to be in control of the situation themselves. And trusting others can feel like a sort of relinquishing of that control. And that could be uncomfortable for a lot of people. I know myself personally, this is one that and it's funny, this one was one that I wrote down because I resonated with this one quite much, right? I'm not a person personally who I believe has a lot of control issues in terms of like, I need everything to be done myself, but I do have the mindset of, to an extent, depending on what it is, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. So that is, like I said, something that I am working on, right? And so this one definitely did resonate with me, especially with the control issues, because I know, like I said, coming from myself, this can be a problem spot for some things, right? Especially if it's something that you have or that you're doing and you have to give up part of that to somebody else. It can be really, really tough, especially for anybody out there who's maybe building up their side hustle, building up their business, or let's say you're not even building up a business. Let's say you're doing something as simple as like building a tree house, right? If you built up that tree house yourself, and then you're going to say, okay, I'm going to entrust it. So you use the word trust again, entrust it to Joe Schmo. What am I going to do now? Can I fully trust Joe Schmo to take care of all of the weeks and months of labor and time that I took to put into this project, to put into this task, to put into this whatever it is that you're trying to put together? Can I really put my faith and trust in Joe Schmo to take care of everything and really treat it the same way as I did? Can I trust that Joe Schmo has the same exact mindset that I had about this thing and take care of it in the same way that I see? Which is why a lot of times you'll see when companies are founded, it has a strong why. It has a strong, clear passion with the original founders. But then as those founders leave, and then as things begin to get diluted, you'll start to see sometimes things begin to stray away. That can also be where people start to have control issues and trust issues and things. But that's a topic for another discussion. Reason number 4 is lack of self-trust. People sometimes struggle to trust themselves and also have a difficulty in trusting others when they have difficulties trusting themselves. A lot of times, if they don't trust their own judgment, they may struggle to trust the judgment of others, right? I won't harp on this one too long because this one is kind of more of a self-explanatory point. However, it kind of just makes sense if you think about it, right? If you're unable to trust yourself a lot of times, then sometimes you'll be thinking that if you hear some other advice of somebody who's trying to, some advice from someone who's trying to tell you something, a lot of times it'll go through a mental filter of, can I trust what this person's saying? Because what if I said that to myself? Could I truthfully trust what's going on with that? Right? It goes through like that mental filter, right? Because everything that we hear in life goes through some sort of mental filter. And that mental filter is built up throughout our lives, our times, our experiences, what we've been through, people we've hung around. Our entire life has basically cultivated and created a mental filter that we hear everything through, which is why you can say one sentence and, for example, one person will be offended and one person won't even really care because it's just that mental filter. Last reason why people sometimes have problems trusting other people is that they believe that trust is earned. Okay. Some people believe that trust must be earned over time and that it cannot be freely given. This mindset makes it very difficult for people to trust others until they realize that the other person has proven themselves trustworthy. This one is pretty tough. Now, this one, honestly, this one was kind of tough because this one I can see where they're coming from with this one. And they're saying that they believe that trust is earned. However, here is the thing that I found when I was doing my little research with this episode. And I found that while trust can be earned, what ends up happening a lot of times is, especially at least for me, is that at least for me, right? Let me just speak from a personal point of view here. When I think that somebody needs to earn trust, like from the get-go, right? When I feel like they need to earn that trust, I will find every single excuse in the book of why to not trust them. It could have merit, or it could not have merit. But regardless of that fact, I'm always trying to disqualify something, because it goes back to some of those other issues. Maybe possibly a past experience that I don't know about or that I forgot about, but it still created that mental filter that I talked about. It could be going back to control issues. It could be going back to anything. It could be going back to something that I didn't even mention in this list that I created. But what I found out is that I will find ways to disqualify this individual, whether they have merit or not. And that'll just be the default thing. And I find that that's actually more common than I thought that it was. And so what I've thought about is, okay, how is it then that I can go about realizing that we can trust people without them having to earn that trust? And so that's where we get to the almighty overarching question of this episode. How can we learn to trust others? Because we have those bad past experiences. We have that fear of vulnerability. We probably have those control issues, the lack of self-trust, or even believing that trust needs to be earned. So how is it then that we can learn to trust other people? As I said before, we got 5 points. So here are some points to consider. Then when we're done, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. So number 1 is to recognize the importance of trust. In Proverbs 17:17, it says that a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. What does that mean? Basically, in a nutshell, it means that we need people in our lives who we can trust and we can rely on during difficult times. So now, I don't know about you, but in this thing we call life, you're gonna have some difficult times. Period. Point blank done. You will have difficult times. That's it. If life was easy, peaches and cream, and had no problems, that would almost be like, what's the point of life? Because we're not growing, we're not learning anything. There will be almost no need for a purpose of here. Any purpose to make things better in anybody's life, because life is already perfect. So when the difficult times come, not if, when the difficult times come, we need somebody that we can trust, somebody that we can lean on in that time of adversity. And now if we are continually disqualifying, as the point that I made before, continually disqualifying, or we're continuing to want to hold on to those control issues or continue to hold on to those past experiences as what we can use for the future and not be willing to change, how are we going to get people into our lives that can help us in those trying, tough times? It's going to be exponentially more difficult to do so because we're not letting people in. Okay, so you're probably wondering, well, that didn't really help me that much. Okay, that's fine. We'll get to some more tactical stuff in the next couple points here. First, I want to also talk about point number 2 here of learning how to trust others, and that is we need an example. So we need to follow the example of Jesus, right? Throughout his ministry, Jesus showed us what it meant to trust and to love others. In John 15:13 specifically, he says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." Oh no. Yes, that's what it said. I'll read it again. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You know what that means? That means if you call somebody your friend, biblically, that means you should be ready to die for them. Oh no. I ain't dying for Pookie. I ain't dying for Ray Ray. I guess they're not your friend then. Because the Bible also says that a friend sticks closer than a brother. And you know, especially if you have siblings and you know, and you're on very good terms with your siblings, you know you'd probably do almost anything for your siblings to help them out. If they went to jail, you'd probably bail them out. If they need a place to sleep, you'd open up your basement or a couch or something for them to come crash for however long they need to get back up on their feet. And now you're supposed to treat a friend better than that. Whoa. Deep. I know, deep. We're just gonna let that one sit. Pause this episode, let that marinate, and then come back for point number 3 once that's marinated some more. Number 3, let's get to the tactical stuff now, okay? Number 3, 4, and 5 here of my points are now a lot more tactical. Number 3, practice forgiveness. So when we forgive others, we open ourselves up to the possibility of trusting people again. Colossians 3:13, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. Now, I talked about this in a past episode where I was talking about, should we forgive? You know what they did to me and everything. The whole forgive and not forget, right? We're still supposed to forgive them. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. That is how we also work on being able to trust other people. Because this goes back to the practicing forgiveness, goes back into the fear of vulnerability. In order to practice forgiveness, one of the best ways is to, back to point number 2 of the reasons why we have problems trusting people, the fear of vulnerability. That's one of the fastest ways to do that, man. Now, did I say this was going to be easy? No. Did I say you had to go divulge that you're somebody who did an absolutely abhorrent crime? I didn't say do that either. What I'm saying is start with something that you know, for example, an accountability group or in Alcoholics Anonymous or in things like those kind of things, right? What do? They go in there and then they let people know, or the therapy groups or anything like that, right? What do they usually do? They go in there and they are vulnerable in those things, right? They are vulnerable. And then they are within a group of people that they trust, this trust circle of people that also help to do what? Hold them accountable for wanting change in their life. You look at anything, right? You go to a therapist, right? What are you doing? You're being vulnerable with a therapist, means you're putting your trust in that therapist. Yes, you're also paying them too, but you have trust in that therapist that they will not only keep your information confidential, but be there to listen to you, but also help to hold you accountable to say, hey, you know, we're going to help you through this time of your life. And whatever I tell you that you need to do to be able to try to get out of this time of your life, I'm going to make sure that you stick to that so you can see positive change. You can look at any kind of a coach, and that's also what coaches do. Coaches will say, hey, you said that you wanted to go from here to there. Okay, we've already analyzed this and we said that is possible. Now, my job as a coach is to then help you to say, okay, what are the roadblocks between here and there? And then to not only help you to get through them, whether they be mental, physical, emotional, whatever, and then to hold you accountable for that. But the only way to do that is to be vulnerable. And it's not easy. And yes, I'll also be 100% honest. You will be burned if you are vulnerable. You will be 110% chance. You heard it here first, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you will be burned. I'm going to keep it a buck with you. You will be burned. Not by everybody, but you will be burned. And it will hurt. However, what should we do? Forgive. I know people don't want to hear that. People just like that how could you do that, man? How could you forgive somebody who burned you in the past? Well, like I said, we have to go back to point number 2, right? Follow the example of Jesus. People followed Jesus. They loved him. They screamed his name. They thought he was hot stuff. They came after him like, oh, he can heal the sick. He can let the blind see, make the deaf hear, raise people from the dead and everything. He did all these great things and people saw. But then when it came time for him to get killed, the exact same people who he helped are the exact same people calling for his death. All them people went and literally burned, not quite literally burned like with fire or anything, but they basically almost backstabbed them. They basically backstabbed the man. They backstabbed the man after all that he did, after all the transparency that he gave to these people, after all the help and assistance he gave them, he was still backstabbed. So, and the Bible also says, just as Jesus was persecuted, we will also be persecuted on this earth as Christians as well. So what in the world makes us think this is going to be easy? I don't know. But like I said, I'm just keeping it a buck. I'm keeping it a bill here, okay? You will be burned. You have to expect that. But we have to learn how to forgive other people and keep on going. This is not to say if somebody crashes your car and you get a new car, trust them with the car again, okay? Forgive but not forget, because you also have a wisdom of discernment given to you as well, okay? Common sense says if this person crashed my car and it was their fault, I am probably not going to give them a car again that they can use to drive. However, I will still forgive them for what they did. You see the difference there? You see the balance there? All right. So another thing, point number 4 of how we can learn to trust others. Again, I was bleeding kind of into this next point, and it's to be cautious, but not to be cynical. So in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, it says, and a lot of people know this verse, so if you know it, say it along with me. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. So when we trust in the Lord, we can be confident that he's going to guide us to make wise decisions, right? Wisdom of discernment. He helps us with that, about who to trust and how to navigate difficult situations. He gave us a wisdom of discernment, as I said before, to be able to decide what to do, who to trust, those kind of things, right? That way we don't have to turn to God for every little thing. Like, for example, God, should I breathe today? Obviously you should breathe today, okay? You shouldn't be asking God if you should breathe today. We'd be in a lot bigger of a problem if you had to ask God if you could breathe, right? However, what we can do is that we can trust God to say, like, if we are genuinely concerned or inquisitive, or we just want to know, like, God, should I trust this individual? Should I give this individual this? Back to the car example. God, this person crashed my car and I am livid that they did this. But God is saying, I want you to give them your car again. Excuse me, what? You want me to do what? You want me to give them the car again? Are you sure? Give them the car again. He might say that, he might not. But if you are genuinely trying to be in tune with what God is saying, you'll ask. And then it's up to you to then still be receptive and respond accordingly. And finally, how can we learn to trust others? Point number 5, take small steps, right? Learning to trust others, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, right? Start by taking very, very small, simple steps, such as sharing a personal story with a friend or asking for help with the project, something that has a pretty low barrier or low bar to entry type of thing. One of those things where it's as if, this is what I always say, when you're gonna tell somebody something that you're trying to trust and everything, one of the best things that you can do is to tell them something that you would not mind seeing on mainstream media or mainstream news. If that information got out or it got leaked, air quotes, it wouldn't harm your self-image or wouldn't harm your image of how people see you or anything of that nature at all. Like if someone, like if, for example, if information about me got out, for example, let's say like, oh, I took a shower today and then, I don't know, I ran out of soap. So I had to use hand soap. It says something stupid like that, right? If that got onto mainstream Twitter, like you can play that off as a joke and say, hey man, soap is soap, bro. You know, people fall on tough times, soap is soap. You know what I mean? It's a stupid example. I know, very stupid example, but you get the point though, right? You get the idea, right? Take very small steps, share like very small personal stories, and then using that, and as I alluded to before, your wisdom of discernment, depending on how the person who you're talking to takes that story and what happens to that story and where that information goes, then you can use that discernment wisdom that you are so wonderfully blessed with to then be able to say, do I want to continue in, pursuing a trustful relationship with this individual? You can use things like that. So that's what I have for you guys for this episode. Again, before we end off, here's some ending reminders. Again, I'm always accepting questions for the show, as well as voicemails if you want to leave any kind of question, comment, concern, criticism of the world, hopefully not the last one, or any kind of constructive criticism about the show. You can leave me a voicemail by going to the website, motivategrindssucceed.com. There will be a tab on the right-hand side. If you're on a computer, you can click on the tab on the right. If you're on a phone or tablet, any kind of mobile device, you can tap on the tab on the right-hand side. It'll be a tab that says Open Me. You can click on that, leave me a voice message of whatever it is that you want to leave. And chances are, if it's a really good question that you want to get answered on the show, we'll go ahead and feature it at the end. We'll go ahead and have a featured questions portion at the end of the show, and you will have a chance of being on the show. Second announcement here, guys. Remember the fourth wall site, it is still under construction, but it is almost done. However, like I said before, I'm not going to drop the day when the website actually goes live. So in order to find that out, you're going to have to be subscribed to the email list. So when you go there to the website, mgsclub.club. It's also in this episode's description. You're going to see a coming soon page. If you put your email there, you'll be signed up to the email list, where I promise you I will not spam you at all, because I hate spammy emails. They suck. They are awful. And I hate having my inbox filled with a bunch of junk. So because I hate that, I will not do that to you. And so when the site opens, though, if you do put your email in and you do sign up for that, you will receive a special discount, special permanent discount, that is, on anything that is in the store. And yes, there are some freebies, so you don't even have to buy anything. But that is what I have for you this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. And before you go, don't forget that if you like what you hear, go ahead and leave a rating and review if you feel so inclined, as it really does help to go a long way. As I said before, there's also the email list as well. You can join and get access to new episode release, merch drops, upcoming events, and all that good jazz, so much more. Go ahead and click the link in this episode's description. You can go ahead and check that out. And finally, if you're so inclined to support the show, I support you for supporting me. So check out that Fourth Wall website. Links to everything down in this episode's description, guys. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you all next time.